These are my audience members. Next.
Good evening. Tonight I want to talk about a very special lady. She's one of my favorite poets. She was born Marguerite Johnson on April 4th, 1928, and she would soon be known as Maya Angelou. She was a poet, an educator, an actress, but she was so much more. The list goes on and on. Maya equals tough means that from an early age, she faced a hard life. When she was 3 years old, her parents divorced, and she was shuffled back and forth between her parents' house and her grandparents' house, back and forth between Missouri and Arkansas. Speaking of, living in that time era in the South, it was very hard with racial discrimination, very thick in that time. And also, she was raped at age 7, which for a woman is very hard to deal with. And a few days after that happened, the man was found murdered, and she believed that because of her words, he was murdered, so she took a vow of silence for 5 whole years. But despite all of that, she still had those people in her life that helped her through. And one of those people was her grandmother, and she helped her to see that life is going to get you down, but you have to rise above it, and you have to keep that happy-go-lucky attitude. And she had her baby brother, who was her best friend, and he helped her through everything. She also had her favorite teacher, Miss Bertha Flowers, who is responsible for encouraging her to speak again. And she told her, you have a beautiful voice, you need to speak and be heard. Maya soon found out that that was what her passion was the arts. Acting, dancing, singing, poetry. She loved to read. And she was found by San Francisco's School of Acting and Dancing. They gave her a scholarship at age 14, and so she went there. She decided to leave to finish her high school diploma, and shortly after her high school diploma was finished, she was pregnant and she gave birth to her first son, Guy. And she became a single mother, and it was hard, so she had to go out and find 3 jobs to support her and her son. And she removed paint at an auto body shop during the day, and then at evenings she was a cook and a waitress at a Creole cafe. And then on the weekends was what she really wanted to do. She loved to sing and dance, and she danced at a nightclub. And this was a series, or the next part of her life, where she had a lot of ups and a lot of downs. She went through 3 divorces, but at the same time, her career skyrocketed. She was found by this little traveling opera company in the 1950s. She was in her early 20s, about my age, and everywhere they went, the audiences loved her, which led to her first recorded album in 1957 called Calypso Lady, and it did really well. And by this time, she moved to Cairo and began journalism, and she moved to Ghana and met Malcolm X, and by this time she had learned 5 different languages. Well, she brought home to America all of her knowledge along with Malcolm X, one of her good friends, and unfortunately she had to go through his and Martin Luther King's assassinations one after another, and it really devastated her. She ran into an old friend of hers from Paris named James Baldwin. He was a writer, and he told her, he said, "Maya, you need to get back to writing, put all those feelings into your writing, because that's what you do best." And she does. So from about the 1970s to the 1990s, she did everything. She acted, she sang, she appeared on television, she spoke for high schools, encouraged them, and she was awarded several different honors by different presidents. She spoke at Bill Clinton's inaugural, and then permanent resident at the Wake Forest University, where she spoke and taught English. And this is when my favorite poem was produced. It was called I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And it starts off, the free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends, dips his wings in the orange sun rays, and dares to claim the sky. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings of freedom, and that's how I really related to it as a young girl, and since then I've loved Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou, to this day, is still speaking and is still writing and still making poems, and she's still telling people to go for your dreams.